Van Halen weren't really running with the devil? The next you'll tell me is Pantera weren't actually cowboys from hell.
True story. And unfortunately, there wasn't even a devil for Motley Crue to shout at. It's all been a bunch of smoke and mirrors, folks. Hey everybody, it's Friday morning. Hope you're going to have an amazing weekend. Welcome to SMG Viewers Comments, the show that's about you, not about me. So let's get to your comments and questions right now.
It's hard to be a rock star. It's not so hard to sell stuff to aspiring rock stars.
Are you trying to tell me buying a $3,500 Les Paul isn't going to make me a better guitar player?
Why do some guitar players relic their instruments? Some even buy brand new guitars that look used as well. Why? You don't see any other musicians intentionally ruining the finish on their instruments. What's up with that?
Simple, man. It is cosplay for hipsters and nothing more. They're trying to give off this aura that they've paid their dues and they've been on the road and you should respect them because they're coming from a position of authority. Meanwhile, they just fucking paid for it. Personally, I'd rather play an awesome beast like this Ormsby, 29 frets, and Seafoam Green. I gotta admit, the color's kind of grown on me as of late. I don't want to put any scratches and dents into this thing because I think it's awesome just the way it is. I would much rather have one of these than some fucking poser caster.
There's a collector market. It's different from the player market. Cars, toys, instruments. You're talking about investors, hobbyists, and collectors with money. Most aren't even players. Players see this market overlap, and it's annoying.
Yeah, fortunately with the guitars, you don't have to drop a shit ton of money on a guitar these days to get something absolutely incredible. Now, this guitar here from 10S is about 5 times less the cost of a Gibson, but it doesn't quite play like a Gibson because you don't have to keep tuning it all the time. Seriously, though, this is absolutely badass. If you're a player, I'd say get one of these. You're going to have a far more fun time with it than something name brand that all the fucking collectors are going to drool over. But I hear what you say about the whole collector thing. I mean, like, I got this. This is Valkyrie from the anime Robotech, and I've always wanted one of these since I was like 15 years old, and I had to like special order it from Japan and shit. And yeah, it's freaking amazing. But I'm terrified to take it out of the box because it might lose its value. And I'm just kind of torn. It's like, I thought I got this thing so I could, take it out of the box and put it up on the desk and kind of have it up there as kind of like just a little tribute to something I really loved when I was a teenager. But the collector in me says, well, that would be a bad investment. And I just don't understand the collector market. For whatever reason. I mean, another great example would be, got a Mark 150 down here at the bottom of the shelf. You can't really see it there, unfortunately, doing the old J.J. Abrams thing here. Seriously though, the 5150 was amazing. What are they, like quadrupled in price compared to what I used to pay for them? I had one that I paid $600 for. What are they going for now? Like $2,400, $2,500? That's absolutely fucking bonkers. Those amps aren't worth that kind of money. Seriously. And if somebody's trying to charge that, tell them, fuck you!
When discussing vintage guitars with a friend at a music store, I posed this question. It's fair to say that every single Gibson or Fender on this wall right now is going to be awesome? He replied, no, some will be great, some awful, and the rest pretty good with some setup work. I then gave a hypothetical. Okay, so we're in a music store in 1959 to 60 right now. Does the same logic apply to the guitars in front of us? He paused and said, I never thought of it that way. So yeah, I guess some 1959 Les Pauls would be turds. I argued with modern production methods, tighter tolerances, advances in maintaining wood humidity during production, it gets harder and harder to argue that certain years, woods, or materials are inherently better or magical is nonsense. Remember, in 1959, the Les Paul standard was simply that year's production model. Imagine paying $150,000 for a 2022 Gibson Les Paul standard in the year 2050 because they tell us we should pay that much? Your mileage may vary.
Jonathan, dude, you knocked it out of the park with that one. I mean, seriously, guys, if you're trying to process what was said there, just rewind it and listen to that again, because I think there's some real wisdom there. And if you're shopping on the used market, keep that mindset in mind. Would you actually pay this kind of money for something 50 years from now if you're buying it off the shelf now? Is it really actually going to be worth that? Or is it just a bunch of bullshit? My money's on it being just a bunch of bullshit. Hey everybody, just gonna break in here for a second. I almost forgot we've got a very special deal going on for this weekend. It's Cam Fleury's double bass drumming control course. It's on sale for only $97 for this weekend only. So if you're like most drummers that come into my studio and don't quite nail their double bass parts and then I have to fix everything, this course was definitely designed with you in mind. Believe me, it's gonna cost far less to take this course than it is for me to spend hours and hours and hours fixing it and charging you for hours and hours and hours of work. Now, you guys have seen Cam on this show numerous times over the year. The guy's an absolute monster and he has this amazing double bass control. And the great thing is I don't have to spend a lot of time fixing. Let me show you what I mean. So if you're into that style of drumming, this is definitely the guy you want to take a lesson from. I'll have links for his course in the description below. Once again, it's going to be on sale today, tomorrow, and then Sunday. Then it is back to $150 US. So grab it now while you can. Now back to the show.
Yo, glad I got a Focusrite 2i2 and I want to start recording drums. I don't want to get an 8-channel plus interface to record drums with it, so I'm going to put a 10-channel rack mixer in its place and run the mixer's signal into the Scarlett. I know cheaping out like this is going to make me lose the ability to edit and EQ every individual drum, but I've been looking for budget workarounds for a while, and this is the best I can come up with. You got any ideas for little workarounds like this, or am I going to have to drop another $2,000 on an interface with more channels?
Dude, man, $2,000 on an interface? What fucking planet are you on? You can literally get a Focusrite Scarlett 18i20 for what, $600? And that's going to have 8 inputs, but if you want to save even more money, I'd say sell that 2i2 and get yourself an Audient ID14. It's just like the 2i2, except it has an ADAT connector on it. You can get them brand new for like $299. And then for another $200, you can get one of these. This is a Behringer ADA 8000. That is 8 channels with 8 very clean mic preamps. That sounds fantastic. It's even won several shootouts on gearsluts.com. Blind shootouts, mind you, not ones where everybody's looking at them and suddenly they don't sound as good. No. The actual blind test, this thing won, and it beat out converters that cost several $1,000s more. Fantastic piece of gear, by the way. Seriously, that is the ultimate banged for the buck 8-channel preamp. Most of the time, you're going to be using your good preamps, your 1 and 2, just for guitars, vocals, that kind of thing. But for extra channels on drums, yeah, there's no reason why this couldn't serve the purpose that you need it for. The problem you're going to run into with the running a mixer into 2 channels on a 2i2 is that you're going to have to get everything right at the source. That means right tuning, right EQ on the board. I don't know if your board will have gates. I don't even know how much that board is going to cost you. It might make a lot more sense to go with the ID14 and one of these as opposed to a mixer. It's probably going to wind up being cheaper too. Now, I just checked the used market on Reverb real quick there, and you can get a used Focusrite 18i20 that's got 8 mic preamps on it for $249. It's a first gen, so the DI is going to suck. So if you're doing amp sims, that kind of thing, you're going to want to get a different kind of direct box or something like that that has more headroom, because the DIs on that don't have headroom for heavy metal style guitar playing. The signal will clip. It was a big issue, but the pre's on that are absolutely fine. They're going to be great for recording drums. That's another viable alternative, and that has ADAT connectors as well. The used 18i20s are going everywhere from $250 to $500, so maybe you should take a look at getting one of those instead of that mixer, because at least that's going to give you discrete channels, so you're going to be able to treat things properly as they're coming in, and maybe even layer a sample or two on top of your kick and snare like Paul Lonnie did on the Megadeth record, one of my favorite albums, and just keep it subtle like that, just to kind of augment things a little bit. Turns out if you do things subtly, you can be very effective, and you'll even pull the wool over the eyes of people who think they know they can tell the difference between real drums and samples, like me. Anyway, yeah, hopefully that helps. If you guys have some suggestions as well for budget multi-channel solutions, I'm all ears. I'm always love hearing from you guys about that sort of thing. Leave a comment below. Hey guys, I'm sorry, but I have to apologize. There's no butthurt of the week. Unfortunately, everything's positive this week. Ugh.
Dude, that is just so wrong on many levels. How can you disrespect everyone in the band, waste everyone's time, and totally blow your reputation by accepting a gig and doing this? What excuse is this drummer going to use to try and cover up his incompetence?
You're referencing the video I put out on Sunday with Joseph Michael, the vocals from Witherfall, talking about their first gig in 2 years where they played a festival in Mexico, and they hired a jazz session drummer to come in and play. The guy was a monster drummer, but he didn't do his homework and he didn't learn the songs. He underestimated the complexity of Witherfall's music, and he bailed out 2 days before the show, didn't bother to tell anybody he was leaving. Now, I'm not going to comment on what the drummer had to say, because honestly, I kind of left me fucking going, really? All I'm going to say is this. I'm going to give credit to Dave Velez for stepping up and pulling off the show. Dave's been a guest on the show numerous times over the year. I met him at a URM Academy meet up there in LA about 4 years ago. Just an awesome dude. Super fun to hang out with. Yeah, kudos to Dave, man. Seriously, good job stepping up and pulling off the show with so little time to prepare. I know Witherfall's auditioning drummers and whatnot, and I hope you're in the running, Dave. I hope you get the gig, but ultimately that's going to be up to the band.
I love hearing all the butthurt comments by your viewers. I'm a classical composer, jazz fusion guitarist, and have little in common with your music, but I watch every episode that you upload, and I learn from what you do. And I love your attitude, by the way. Ozone is a brilliant tool for those of us who needing to occasionally push a mastered track out the door without the background to do a proper master ourselves, or the dollars to hire someone to do it for us. When I compose something for television or radio, the pay is lower than most people would even imagine, so getting a good sounding track done quickly is the way to go. And when I have some giant project with a reasonable budget, I hire a mastering engineer, of course.
Dude, that's the exact same thing here. I mean, like, if I've got to get something pushed out for the show, I'm going to use Ozone or any of other tool to help me get that mastering done because I don't have 20 years to learn how to be a proper mastering engineer. And a lot of people, it seems, when I did that review, didn't really understand the difference between mixing and mastering. I wasn't replacing the musician's performance. I was merely shortcutting the whole mastering process, which is essentially applying a complex EQ curve to make your mix translate into the real world as best as it possibly can. That's what a mastering engineer does, and they'll spend decades learning how to do that. And if I've got a budget for a project and I'm in North America, I'm either going to go see my friend Phil Demetriou up in Toronto at Lacquer Channel. That's where they did 2112 and a whole bunch of other amazing records. Or if I'm down in the States, I'll talk to my friend Morel Applebaum in LA, and he mastered that Queensryche track that I did, about 10 years ago and whatnot. That really wasn't Queensryche, kind of like the Jeff Tate solo project. But anyway, yeah, still never got paid for that one. Thanks, Cleopatra Records. You guys fucking rock. So yes, good rule of thumb, if you need to get something done quickly and don't have the budget, Ozone is the way to go. It is awesome. You can lift an EQ curve off your favorite record and apply it to your stuff. And if you've got well-recorded and well-mixed tracks, chances are it's going to work pretty well. But if you have a budget, go to a real mastering engineer. He's going to come up with something custom just for you.
Thank you for this. Have you done any work with live shots of bands performing on stage or whatever? As a resident shutterbug, I am often tasked with making many of the band shots when they play at local bars and venues. Lights that move around and let random shots, moving bodies, space, smoke, dust, all considerations. It can get very difficult to get the right shots when everything is in motion. I usually take lots of photos and cull the bad ones. This is not the best way to use our devices, I think. Thanks again.
I've done a few live shots and whatnot. I actually got to shoot Saxon a few years ago. I did an interview with those guys too, but the audio got wrecked, so I never ever did get to put that episode on the show. But the stills are somewhere in my archive. I don't do too much live shooting. My friend Gene Schilling in town here, he does a way better job of it than I ever could anyway. But I'd recommend, getting a really great lens. Oh, yes, like one of these. But for shooting live, I'd recommend getting one of these, like an image stabilized Canon L series lens that's going to nail your autofocus. Something like a 6D Mark II or even, 5D Mark I is going to be a great camera, but you're going to want something that's going to be able to nail autofocus and get you the shots you're after and has some reach. Like this is a 24 to 105, so this is going to do everything, from wide to telephoto and in between, and you should be able to nail it. It's an f4, but I mean, like with a modern sensor, like a 6D Mark II, you're going to be able to crank up your ISO and get the low light sensitivity that way, and this should do you just fine. I got this used for like 600 Canadian, it's a pretty good deal. So the 24 to 105, killer fucking lens. This might be just the thing to look for.
As a longtime pro photographer, Glenn, you're spot on. Thanks for getting this information out to the bands that so desperately need it.
Oh, I'm more than happy to pass along what I've learned through a lot of errors. Now, that's the thing. A lot of those images I showed in that video on how to take better band photos were an example of what not to do. And unfortunately, I can't show you some of my really good stuff because that would violate a lot of community guidelines. But I did shoot a lot for Girls of Guitar World back when we couldn't. That's where most of my best stuff wound up. And yeah, that was an awful lot of fun to do. But I think the main point of that video was don't worry so much about where you're going to shoot the video. Worry more about how you're going to appear in the video and make sure everybody's going to show up and be committed to doing the photo session and getting something great. That's the most important part.
Glad! Do bigger monitors make it easier to mix? Love the show, dude. Thanks for the good content. Cheers from Ottawa.
Gus, that's really going to depend on you. I've got the Atom 2 S2As back here. They're 8-inch monitors. They're phenomenal. I've also got a set of KS Digitals just hiding behind the monitor here. I used those for a couple years. Those were 8-inchers too, and those were fantastic monitors. One of my favorite sets to work on were the big set of mains we had down in Hollywood on loan from Dave from Mixbus TV. He had these giant Eve audio ones that were just fucking massive. Those things were a lot of fun to work on. But then again, Jason Constantine in Vegas, he mixes on, the KRK iRocket 5s, just the little 5-inch speakers, and he gets absolutely stellar results. So that's why I say your mileage may vary. I like the bigger speakers. Some guys get some great stuff with the smaller, cheaper stuff. It really depends on you and how well you get to know your monitors and how well they're going to translate. So my suggestion would be get the best monitors you can afford and learn how to work with them.
That guitar tone is one of my faves you've come up with.
You're referencing the YouTube short that I did there last week where I showed that 10S single cut. The tone on that was a Rev Mark III, but we used a custom built cab made out of MDF. It was a 2x12. And we had the EVH speaker in it, and I think that had a lot to do with it. I know that has a lot to do with it. I'm still working on that video. It's taking a little longer than expected, but hopefully you guys are going to see something in the next week or two where we do the cabinet tone wood shootout. So far, yeah, that little 2x12 MDF is just sounding absolutely fantastic. The EVH speakers are a big part of it though, and if you're looking to change up your guitar tone, don't look at a new amp, don't look at changing out your tubes, look at changing your speakers, because that will actually have an impact on the voicing of your tone.
Very curious. I know you spent many years getting your studio to just how you want it. How much would it cost to put that together? Today, I'm talking gear, console, soundproofing, computers, the works.
That's a good question. I honestly wouldn't know. I did a video there a few years ago called the $1,500 recording studio, and we pushed things to the limit, but we actually made it work. It wasn't ideal, and the monitors were the big problem with that build. These days we'd have the Kelly LP6s to work with, so not a problem there. But I'm gonna put this to you guys. How would you like to see maybe a $5,000 studio build video and a $10,000 studio build video and maybe a $1,000 studio build video as well? If that's something you guys would like to see on the show, building a studio for various budget, leave a comment below. Let me know what you'd like to see, because I can screenshot that and then I can go approach some manufacturers about doing that style of video, because we could do a new series on that. Maybe 3, 4, 5 episodes, building home studios at various budget points and just seeing what we can get. Because I can think of a few companies that would probably love to get on board for that sort of thing. So if I've got some massive feedback from you guys and, like I said, screenshots, that kind of thing, I can go to them and we can do it. And I think it'd be really fucking cool to pull that off. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment below.
Have you ever considered putting "this is primarily a metal recording channel" disclaimer at the beginning of your videos? Seems like a lot of stupid questions you get come from people who just don't get it.
Yeah, but wouldn't it ruin the fun?
Glad, so just for an idea for a video. I've always wondered about your master chain track settings and would be curious to explore what effects you have there, in what order you put them, and for what purpose. I think this topic hasn't been discussed much, or am I wrong? This has a significant importance in the complete mix.
Well, these days it's usually an SSL bus compressor, or this guy here, the Tagler Audio Veritube compressor instead. Oh, it's glorious. And then back into Ozone. That's about it. Dude, it's really not that complicated. Check out the video I did on Ozone. That's going to be a big help. And if you don't have access to one of these, the Slate SSL comp or the SSL software emulation is fantastic as well. Remember, 4:1 ratio, 30 millisecond attack, auto release. About 4 dBs of compression. Put that on your mix before it hits the mastering chain, and it's going to make things sound real good. Again, not rocket surgery.
Hey Glenn, been a fan for several years at this point, and I want to say thanks for inspiring me to learn all about recording, because like most musicians, I sure as shit can't afford a studio. What advice would you give to the musician who wants to record their own band? I'm aware I won't be making any professional grade mixes at first, but would it be difficult to record, mix, and master everything with enough proficiency to use for an official release?
Well, Jace, your luck. There's a lot of tools out there for the beginner musician to help record themselves at home and get some pretty damn good results. Easy mix, easy bass, easy drummer, that kind of stuff. Especially when it comes to the drumming, learning how to record real acoustic drums takes a long time and a lot of discipline and a lot of trial and error, and especially to do it without samples, that takes that much more skill. It's not something you pick up overnight. That being said, you can always hybrid things. You can record your guitars at home and then maybe go into a studio to do the drums and have the final mix done that way. That could save you a lot of time. I do that. I recommend that to a lot of bands. It's like, you don't need to be here in the studio to track your guitars. Go do that shit at home. Just as long as you understand things like tracking discipline, how to have your guitar set up properly, how to tune it every single take, that kind of thing. How to keep external noise out of the signals. That's what I find what a lot of bands who record themselves at home don't really take into account. They just think they're going to play it, it's going to sound good. And there's a little more to it than that. We've done several videos on that as well. But if you're in a band, you want to put something out, I'd say talk to a local studio, see what you can do at home, and see what they're going to need from you. What types of formats, all that kind of stuff before you commit to anything. Because you'll probably wind up saving yourself a fortune, especially if you can do a lot of the grunt work at home and not fuck it up. All right, everybody, that's it for this episode. Like I said, leave a comment down below about the studios for various different price points. That's a series you would like to see. I would love to hear from you. Of course, if you've got a comment or a question, you want to get something answered, or there's a type of video you would like to see me do, once again, leave a comment below, because I love hearing from you guys. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button, because I'm getting close to 500,000, but I need your help to get there. If you haven't subscribed, it'd be an awfully big help. All right, until then, stay metal, my friends.